The design argument, also known as the teleological argument, is an irrefutable argument for the existence of God. The argument itself has two simple premises and a conclusion that follows. We'll take them one at a time. The first premise is that every design had a designer. First, we know that this premise is true from experience. All of our uniform and repeated experience tells us that if something is designed, someone did the designing. For example, if you're in a cool building, you know that someone designed it even if you don't see the architect in that building. Second, the idea of specified complexity brings design to a whole nother level. For example, let's say that you see a pile of rocks that were naturally formed. That might look interesting, but if you compare it to Mount Rushmore and the specified complexity of Mount Rushmore, you can see that it only could have come about from a designer. Another example, let's say you're walking on the beach and you see a simple message written in the sand, "Will you marry me?" You know that the waves did not create that message, but someone put that message in the sand, even if you didn't see it happen. So that first premise, every design had a designer, is very intuitive. Now we're going to look at the second premise. The universe has a highly complex design. Support for premise 2 is overwhelming. First, we look at a concept put into place called the anthropic principle, which says that from its very inception, the universe was created for the emergence of life. We're going to go through a slew of examples now to help demonstrate this second premise and the anthropic principle. Example 1, oxygen comprises 21% of the atmosphere. If it were 25%, fires would erupt, and if it were 15%, people would suffocate. In fact, people wouldn't exist at all to begin with. Secondly, if the gravitational force were altered by 1 part in 10 to the 40th power, the sun would not exist. Third, if the universe were expanding at a rate 1 millionth more slowly than it is, the temperature on Earth would be 10,000 degrees Celsius. Fourth, if the rotation of the Earth took longer than 24 hours, the temperature differences between day and night would be too great to support life. Fifth, if there were more seismic activity, much more life would be lost. But if there were less, nutrients on the ocean floor and in river runoff critical to life would not be cycled back into the continents through tectonic uplift. Finally, the ratio of the gravitational force constant to the electromagnetic force constant cannot differ from its value by more than 1 part in 10 to the 40th power without eliminating the possibility for life. By the way, 1 in 10 to the 40th power is 1 part in 10,000 trillion trillion trillion. There are many other examples that we could go through. I believe it's over 200 parameters now for life to exist. And the odds were calculated over 20 years ago that the design in the universe to have come about by random chance would be about 1 in 10 to the 173rd power, or as everyday people would say, impossible. To put that number 1 in 10 to the 173rd power into perspective, there are only about 10 to the 80th power number of atoms in the universe. So our first premise, every design had a designer, is strongly supported. The second premise, the universe has a highly complex design, is as well. The conclusion that naturally follows is, therefore, the universe had a designer.